I'd like to start by saying that I'm extremely privileged to be a student here at Scripps. And I think I speak for all students here in expressing our gratitude to all of you that are in the audience tonight. This institution is where it is today because people like you believe in young scientists. And I hope that we can carry this torch and pass on our enthusiasm and knowledge for science to the next generation. My thesis work has involved looking at how sediments record the insight and how sediments record, the record of sediments record the past processes of Earth and how we use that information to see what's going on in present-day processes. Here's a picture of Alan Jaffe. In this photo, he's in the center of a group of people. And for those of you that know Alan, you know that he was always in the center of things. I just want to say that Alan Jaffe was a big supporter and friend to our lab, and we really miss him. I have two main study areas that I'm working on for my thesis. The first one is Papua New Guinea, where I'm looking at how rivers distribute sediments on the mid-shelf in this region. This is important both scientifically and for socioeconomic reasons because of the natural resources. Here in Southern California, I'm looking at the terrestrial part and looking at how sea level changes affect beach cliff erosion and the beaches that we have here. What I study, and in our lab what we study, are the sediments and stratigraphy. Stratigraphy is the layering of sediments, and this is an important tape recorder of Earth's history. This tells us about how tectonics, sea level, sediment supply, and climate have changed in the past. I'm going to start you off by bringing you here to the Gulf of Papua in a virtual setting. We're zooming in here. This is the topography and the bathymetry. The red is the shallow, and it moves into deeper water. As you see, we have seismic data that's collected. This is chirp seismic data. And our lab spent months in this area collecting this data. If you look closely, you can see small layers in the data. This is kind of like tree rings. It records the sediment deposition over time, and we can tease out information about tectonics, sea level change, and sediment supply. The colors that you see are my interpretations of how this has changed over time. We're using this information to better understand how things have changed. Unfortunately, due to brevity, I've got to be very brief on this subject. So I'm going to move on to the more local study area. Here at Scripps, with my advisor, we set up a program called SCARP. It's the Sea Cliff Assessment Research Program. And what we're doing here is mapping the sea cliffs from La Jolla all the way up to Encinitas. This is the laser pointer. From La Jolla down here all the way up to Encinitas, and looking at how these sea cliffs erode and the different mechanisms that control this. This is really important because, as you know, sea level is rising 2 to 3 millimeters per year. And what we don't understand is how this change in sea level is going to affect our local beaches. In order to study this, I use a technology called LiDAR. This is a terrestrial mapping system, and it allows us to create 3D models of the cliffs. So we use this instrument here to map. It sends out laser pulses and gives us back X, Y, Z data points. That allows us to give extremely high resolution spatial data, and it's all geo-referenced because we have a GPS that records our location. We create these models, and that allows us to look at change over time. And we can calculate this change and quantify it in a very confident way. That was our old setup. This is our new setup. This is our new survey vehicle. And I'd like to give a special thanks tonight to the CRINSC Foundation, the CRINSC initiative, because without this, we would never have this vehicle. This has increased our productivity and efficiency out in the field dramatically. And it's difficult to acquire this type of equipment, vehicles and boats, through traditional funding processes. These private funds allow us to acquire seed data that help us demonstrate proof of concept. And that allows us to then use that information to submit grants for larger or more traditional funding sources. So it's a very helpful technique. On first glance, this looks like an image, but it's actually a 3D model of the cliffs here at Torrey Pines. Most of you have probably been out on Torrey Pines Beach walking along and seen these cliffs. To orient you, up here, this is flat rock, about a mile down the beach. This is where the parking lot is located. Each one of these little semicircles is a scan origin. That's where we set up our scanner, and then we start the scan, and in about 6 minutes, we get over 1 million data points. So we have a 3-dimensional representation of a cliff at a static point in time. Here's a close-up of some of our LiDAR data, and you can really see the detail that we get from this information. Here there was a failure where the sediment was liberated from the cliff and deposited on the beach. This is a really important source of sand for our local beaches. And so we're trying to figure out what the mechanisms are that cause this type of erosion. There are several different kinds of mechanisms that cause sea cliff erosion. Here's a few listed here. Subaerial and mechanical weathering or wave cutting are the main types of erosion. And most people think that the erosion here in San Diego is caused by wave cut erosion only, and it's the main source. In actuality, there's definitely subaerial erosion here, and we're documenting this. Here's a 3D model of Torrey Pines with our LiDAR data. The top is a pre-failure model, and the bottom is a post-failure model. And what you see is how the erosion occurred at the top part of the cliffs. So this is a really nice example of subaerial erosion. You can also see the detail down here in the talus pile. Here's an example of wave cut erosion, and you can see the difference. The erosion starts down at the base of the cliff, and over time it propagates upward because of the oversteepening of the cliff, and that causes instability. For reference, this is flat rock here, so this is the right at the southern part of Torrey Pines. As I've been a student here at Scripps, I've been studying geology and geophysics. My undergraduate training was in biology. So I have these very different foundations in my scientific training. I want to bring these together. And as Lauren was talking about the importance of studying baselines, I feel it's really important for us to learn more about the baselines of really fragile ecosystems. There's a colleague of mine in the audience, Jeffrey Gearhart, and the two of us have established a program through Scripps that's going to be based on research, education, and conservation in the Coral Triangle region of Indonesia. This is an area that has the highest biodiversity on the planet. It's really important for us to learn more about what's going on in this region. So as a postdoc, I hope to set up this program and learn more about what's going on here. And we're going to be using all these geophysical tools that I've shown you tonight to do this, along with other researchers from Scripps in the fields of marine biology, physical oceanography, and we're hoping to set up this program as a multidisciplinary program so that we can learn more about this very remote region that's extremely important on this planet. There's a number of labs that are participating in this program. And if you would like to hear more about this program or anything else that I talked about, I'd be happy to talk to you afterwards.